Hi, everybody. How are you today? I hope that you're doing well. If you're alive, have a pulse, you're breathing, well, there's a good chance that at some point in your life you've experienced the emotion known as resentment, that uncomfortable feeling that rises up inside of us, usually when there's a situation between us and another person that we have a relationship with, whether that person be your boss, a coworker, a sibling, a friend, another family member, a significant other, whoever, even some acquaintance. But if there's some unresolved situation, usually leaving you with some form of unresolved anger that lingers around for a while, it expresses itself in what we know as resentment. And it can hang around for a long time, sometimes the whole day, which is already too long, sometimes the whole week, the whole month, a whole year, or in many cases, even decades. And that's the thing about this emotion, resentment. It could sit inside of us, just kind of park it and sit at home for a while and just really start to eat away at our overall state. And really, nobody ever gives us the tools on how to deal with it, how to work through with it. I found myself at many points throughout my life dealing with it, dealing with the frustration that comes with it, the sadness that comes with it, all the other emotions that are attached to it. And it took me a long time to learn how to work through and understand what this is. What I want to do today is present to you some tools that I've used, some things that I've picked up along the way that have helped me overcome resentment whenever it's surfaced in my life. Specifically, one with a parent. Recently, I overcame a huge resentment that I held towards one of my parents. So this video might be a little slanted towards my parent or your parents, anybody that's dealing with a situation with their parents. It can be really difficult, but the principles can be applied across the board to any relationship, how to deal with it, how to cope with it, and best ways just to kind of break free from it and move on. Resentment can feel very uncomfortable with whoever you're feeling it towards, right? Particularly though, somebody like a parent. When you have resentment towards a parent, it runs a little deep, runs heavy. The emotion of resentment can be very hard to overcome. It's very complex, usually very layered, and very difficult to navigate everything that goes along with it, especially when it's resentment towards a loved one, especially when it's resentment towards a parent. It's an uncomfortable feeling, something that we really don't want to talk about sometimes. We hold it inside of us until we learn how to overcome it by learning about what it is and ways to release it and let it go from your life so that you don't repeat these patterns and have them kind of gripping you, taking over and hanging around for a long time. The topic of resentment can be a heavier one to discuss, right? As it's rooted in anger and there's feelings of loneliness, sadness, frustration, disappointment, feelings of hurt, all of those things. My goal in this video isn't to bring the mood down, but to maybe shed light on something that many of us don't like to discuss, and many of us don't reach out to learn how to work through these emotions, learn how to deal with it when it arises in our life. I had to work through the reasons it was showing up and find ways how to deal with it, how to rid myself of this feeling, and how to finally get over it. And it wasn't more until recently that I learned how to overcome some of the bigger ones that I dragged around for a long time. I think the words I'm going to share and the story I'll share can be applied to all relationships in your life, whatever they are. Mine in particular is slanted towards a parent. Recently, I was able to overcome a huge resentment that I had in my life, one towards my father, and I'll share that with you later on in the video. For the longest time, I didn't know what resentment was. I mean, I knew the term and I knew when I was experiencing it, but I was just like, gosh, there goes that feeling again. Why is it coming up? And I understood like the context of it. It's a natural human condition. Like we're born with it. We have the capacity to hold it and express it. But the thing about it is that we kind of learn how to express it. We learn when to express it and how to express it. Usually that's learned throughout our life, right? It's learned maybe by modeling. You know, you see somebody use it a certain way. You may not even realize that, like when you're younger and you're receiving programming from your environment, whether it's your parents, siblings, friends, just other examples of it. And you understand when to use it when it comes up. Usually a feeling of discomfort arises sometimes when you've been treated unfairly, or there's a betrayal in your relationship, or there's anger that you didn't get to resolve. You weren't able to express it the way you wanted to. You felt unheard. You felt unseen, like, like you didn't count, like your boundaries were crossed. And if you don't know how to deal with the emotion when it arises, you run to your toolbox, you pop it open, you look inside, there's nothing there, right? And then you quickly go to your examples, the ones that you've learned, the ones that you saw as you were growing up, you learned along the way. You learn that, oh, in this situation where somebody did me wrong, or I felt I was treated unfairly and I didn't get to express my words, or even if you did, if they were like just treated like they didn't have any value, then you, unfortunately, then you sit with it and you stew with it. And it's the thoughts that go along with the event that happened, whatever it was that made you feel this emotion to begin with. These thoughts create these emotions inside of you, and these emotions then turn into that action, right? So in the case of a parent, if you are feeling resentment towards them, oftentimes popular reasons are, somebody felt unloved. Maybe they felt the parent wasn't available to them, either emotionally, physically, or both. They were cold, unloving, mean, hurtful, either with their words or physically. And resentment is an emotion that's evolved really to protect us from these situations that are perceived as being harmful, such as betrayal and not being loved, things that kind of threaten our survival, right? Everybody needs love. Everybody needs attention. Everybody needs to be heard. Everyone needs to feel like they belong and they count. And usually when boundaries are crossed or people betray you, do you wrong, you end up feeling this feeling of resentment towards them. You end up feeling like you didn't get a chance to express who you were, or your feelings were invalidated. And resentment's a natural human condition. We're born with it. We're born with the capacity to express it. Resentment is a basic human emotion, one like anger, fear, sadness, loneliness. And if it feels like anger, it's because it's very closely related to anger. But the thing about anger is it's a little shorter, right, in terms of lasting, right? Anger is usually kind of quick and just kind of a little aggressive and assertive, right? And resentment is more like this slow simmering feeling that you start to drag around with you inside. It's a feeling that just kind of compounds upon itself, and it's longer lasting, and you've experienced it, so you know what I'm talking about. Anger could be very on the spot, very, direct, and resentment is more of a slow boiling, internalized, more emotional grudge that you might hold against somebody. And resentment can express itself many ways. You've probably been on the receiving end of it oftentimes, and you've probably expressed it yourself many times. I know I have, and I've been guilty of many of these different ways. And some common ways are like sarcasm, emotional distancing, passive aggressiveness, just to name a few. And sometimes the things that occur in our lives that make us feel resentment towards somebody can be repeated situations. It doesn't have to be just one time. Sometimes it could be repeated situation, repeated instances of hurt, injustice, of feeling like you're treated unfairly. Those things can really wear you down and just create an even deeper sense of betrayal. And in a case of resentment towards a loved one, in my case, resentment towards a parent, it can feel very difficult, very heavy to deal with. The hurt can run a little deeper and just really leave you confused with a lot of thoughts. If you felt unloved, if you felt like you weren't enough, if you felt abandoned, if you felt just unguided, whatever the reasons are, if you've had hurtful words said to you, if you've had physical harm done to you, many different reasons why it could leave you feeling just with this overall heavy resentment towards somebody, usually, again, because you weren't able to fix the situation. You were powerless over the situation. And when that arises, you have no other choice but just kind of get in your head, think about things, think thoughts like, I mean, why wasn't I enough? Why did my parent treat me this way? Did they not love me enough? Why was it me? These situations can be very confusing. Again, it could be a sibling or even a coworker or a friend, and you could experience these similar thoughts. But in my case, I had a situation with my father where I felt some of the things I just mentioned to you. And it left me, quite honestly, for a long time wondering many different things and feeling very resentful towards him. But the thing is, I didn't really know that until I dug in a little deeper and expressed them. In fact, I felt almost prideful for a long time just saying I didn't like my dad. My case in particular, my father passed, it was 30 years ago at this point. And so that actually almost made it worse because just as I became a young adult and I want to kind of work out some of the things from my childhood with my father, unfortunately, he passed away. And that then dragged on the resentment even for an even longer time. So, in the case of dealing with resentment towards a parent, it can be very difficult because, well, first of all, from our childhood, we hope that our parent offers a place of safety, a place of need, a place of love, the connection that we want to feel with our parent. And whenever they're not there, or again, we feel like maybe some betrayal of that relationship, then we have a conflict within us because we know that we love our parent. We know that we want to feel the love from them. So we hope that it's just a temporary situation. And the longer it lasts, the deeper the resentment goes, right? So um, in the case of a parent and the lack of love or that feeling that they weren't there for us, it could be very difficult to navigate that because we actually don't want to feel that. We don't want to experience it. And, it could be a little shameful, quite honestly, when you sit with it because quite honestly, who doesn't want a loving parent, right? So I'll share with you a little bit about my relationship with my father. Again, not to get it too dark and heavy, but just so you have some understanding of really what I'm talking about today and the power that we have over these situations that can grip us. Again, it could be a few days, weeks, years, or in my case, it was decades. My experience with my father, although unique to me because it's my father and, well, I'm me, it's probably a little common with individuals everywhere across the world, whether it be a woman with her mother, teenage girl with her mother, a boy with his dad, a grown man with his dad. You understand the cross relations, whatever it is, the feelings may be similar. So hopefully what I share with you here can be something that, give you a little thought and you can appreciate the mood and the understanding of it. So to not make a long story too long, I'll just start by saying, he wasn't always there physically. He wasn't always there emotionally as well. He wasn't as caring as I would have loved him to be. And he was the same way with my siblings as well. So he wasn't as loving. He wasn't as caring. He was a little mean with his words. He was a little mean physically as well. But that could have just been a generational thing. I'm a little bit older. I was born in the 1970s, and things were just a little bit different back then. Regardless, he wasn't so available in many ways. And I felt that through my childhood. And when I saw other boys with their parents or with their fathers, I saw the different engagement. Mine wasn't always there for me. He wasn't around. Thankfully, I had a very loving mother who I was really close with, and she recently passed. But that relationship was quite the opposite, thankfully. But with my father, he just wasn't really an individual that was warm and loving or caring towards my siblings and towards me. I felt like as a boy, I needed the father's guidance. I didn't realize that's what was happening when I was younger. It was just this longing, you understand? Like I would wonder where he was. I was wondering why he wasn't around. I was wondering why I didn't have access to him like I wanted to have access to him. But when he would come around, I'd try to put myself in front of him and I'd try to be there. But oftentimes he was a little distant. And I felt that, as a child, you can feel that, unfortunately, when a parent's really being a little distant with you. And things got a little bit worse as I entered my teenage years because my parents got a divorce. And I was hoping that as I got older, moved through my teenage and adult years, that I would have a closer relationship with my father. But that never developed. And my older sister and my younger sister went to live with my mother, and I stayed living with my father. I remember making the conscious decision that I wanted to stay with him because I would probably need him in my life as a model figure soon enough. And I kind of want to stay close to him and get that bond that I never really had with him. I thought, oh, probably the best move for me was to be with my father. Unfortunately, my father had a life where he was, dating somebody and working, and he was never really home. So suffice to say, as I entered my 20s, I felt like my father hadn't been around for the first 2 decades of my life. I mean, not really. Physically, I saw him sometimes and we had some small conversations, but there was just this huge space between us. But I felt like we were just always faking it. If anybody's ever felt that, then you understand what I mean. You just feel like you're faking it. Like, yeah, there's my dad, and I love him and I want to talk to him, but we've just never really established that. Anyway, so my experience was one of lack with my father. And funny enough, we started becoming closer when I became an adult. Like in my early 20s, I started driving, obviously, in my teenage years. So in my early 20s, I had a car and I was able to go visit him at his place of work and invite him out to lunch and call him up to see when he was available to hang out because I thought I was going to take a mature approach to it. And now that he can see me as an adult and a grown up, that he would accept me a certain way, and because that was certainly the feeling. The feeling was like, how come he was never there for me as a father? So I thought we could establish this new relationship and it'd be great, and I'd get older. And again, I probably thought, that's just the way it is, or that's my story. So at that point, I was just going to be happy to get over the resentment, if you will. Unfortunately, life had different plans, and he passed on of a heart attack. And there was a lot of sadness on my part, a lot of sadness within me, because I realized I was never going to be able to have that relationship with my father. And in that relationship, I was hoping to get closure. And so, since I wasn't able to get the relationship that I was looking for, and therefore I wasn't able to get closure, then the resentments really came out later on in my life. They came out, and I translated that to finally just not forgiving him for that and just like laying blame and a lot of those low energy feelings that go with these feelings of betrayal, resentment. I felt like he was never there for me. He didn't give me the guidance I needed. He was never the friend that I wanted. So unfortunately, although my first 20 years of my life I had a dad, I kind of felt like I didn't. And I wish I could say something differently, but unfortunately I can't. And that feeling lasted for a long time, probably another 25 years. This feeling of not having the father that I needed and not being able to let that go and feeling resentful, angry, and not really happy, not really proud of my relationship with my father. Again, a little shameful. So that's just me being open and vulnerable with you guys so that you could understand your situation, perhaps, if it's something similar, that it happens and it's out there. But I finally just got tired of these thoughts, these emotions that were just draining me. I read someplace it's like carrying like a backpack full of bricks or rocks, and you just finally get tired of it. You finally just want to empty it, unload it, put it down because your back hurts. It's kind of like that. That doesn't mean that you forget what happened, because you can't really, right? But if you can find it in your heart to open up and learn ways to forgive, then it can be powerful, because it can release you from those emotions that have had you stuck for a long time. It can release you from that hook that's been inside of you, pulling you down, dragging you down, having you think these thoughts over and over again. It's just like a loop over and over and over, thinking about the situation that you have no power or control over. So the only way to get that power back is to forgive, open up your heart, and let it go. And let it go. And a way that I found that was really useful and powerful in doing so was, just looking at my father as an individual, not so much as my parent anymore, but an individual, and trying to understand who he was in the situation, trying to understand that he was a flawed individual as well. And once I realized that, it was kind of like, oh, all this time I had him kind of up on a pedestal. But as I evolved and got older in my life, I realized, oh, he was just another human being. I thought he was just some kind of God in a sense. And I didn't see him as a flawed human being, as we all are, right? But as I was able to view him with that lens, then I was able to reframe things. And I saw that he was just an individual who was doing the best that he could, because I believe that he probably thought he was doing a decent job. I don't know if necessarily he was sitting around thinking, oh, I'm doing such a terrible job, and and still continue to do so. Maybe he was, I don't know, but that's not the point. The thing is, I reframed it, and I was able to look at him as an individual who maybe didn't even have the tools to be the parent that I needed him to be, and that may have been because he grew up a different way. And it could be like generational trauma in a sense. Like, I know for a fact that his experience with his father was even worse than mine, right? And so my grandfather probably had an even worse situation, so on and so forth, right? And we live and we learn. But again, that's not forgetting, but I forgive him. You know, I think there's no sense in dwelling on that, except for accepting that and then being okay with it, just letting it be and go, right? So reframing that, understanding that he just probably didn't have the tools to be that person that I hope that he would be, but maybe he was the best that he could be in his anger, or him being mean, or just not so loving, or not so warm. Maybe he felt like he was doing enough, maybe he felt he was doing enough by working all the time and providing. In fact, I know he said that a few times. So, that being said, I think that what helped me get over that resentment was just looking at him as an individual, accepting who he was, and knowing that that's just what it is, and being able to move on from that, dropping that backpack, like I said. In fact, to hold the resentment, as I've read before, it's like drinking the poison and expecting the other individual to feel it, right? It's ludicrous if you do that. You hold something and they probably don't even know what it is. They're probably thinking like, oh, why are they behaving so strangely towards me? And even if you said something towards them, they don't feel what you're feeling inside. It doesn't affect them the same way. So once you know that, you realize, why am I holding this down? It's causing more harm within me than it is to the other person. The effects that it's having on me and in my state is way worse than what I'm trying to present to this individual. So it's a basic human emotion, but you realize that it's really doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just kind of works against you. That's the only way I found that it works. So again, whether it's with a coworker or your boss or a friend or a sibling, whoever it is, keep that in mind that when you have resentment and you're holding it and pulling it down and your whole world's falling apart and your heart rate is up and you can't sleep at night, that you're just the one causing harm to yourself. Not to mention, though, it can create harm in your relationships even further because this person might not understand what you're going through. They can only see your reaction to it, the way you're responding to the event that's occurred, and they just might chalk that up as some kind of character flaw on your end. So it doesn't work at all. So finding the tools how to navigate these situations, I think they're very powerful for our growth and just so that we can allow more love in our hearts and in our lives. So again, you're not forgetting, you're forgiving. You're honoring yourself, you're honoring your truth, you're honoring who you are, and you're allowing yourself to be who you're supposed to be without these betrayals, without these situations that you've given a certain meaning to and you've decided that you're going to carry around for a long time and just really holds you back in life and doesn't allow you to move forward. Don't beat yourself up about it. If you do it, it's a natural human emotion. When that occurs, again, it's there as initial behavior for us to learn how to defend ourselves so that we can survive, these situations, if you will. It can also be helpful to look at your parent and try to find the goodness that they did show and express. Even if it was fleeting and very minimal, if they ever did, try to like sit down with it and understand that maybe there were some flashes in the pan, if you will. Maybe there were some moments that, they showed up to your baseball game or they were there to blow out the candles on your birthday cake or, wrapped you a gift for Christmas. Whatever it is, even if it was just they worked all the time to provide food and have it on the table for you, well, then then maybe that's the best that they can do. And you look at them like that, it helps to like not judge them so much for their limitations. So you can deal with this whenever you're ready, being aware of what it is, what these feelings are. You have to kind of design it too. You have to write it out. You have to give it meaning. You have to understand what it is. Why are you feeling this way? What is it? Spell it out. What is it? What is it really truly? You can't just say, oh, I hate my parent. Like, what is it? What is it? Because it's not really so much that you hate them, I would imagine. It's more that there's something lacking that you wish that you got from them, some basic need that wasn't met, and you harbor this resentment inside of you, and that is expressing itself in some form of anger, and then you're calling it hatred, right? So sit with yourself, find out what it is, write it out, write it in a journal, make yourself a voice memo, record it, or talk to people about it. Again, therapy, counseling, a good friend, but best of all, in your mind, find the thoughts that'll help you move forward, the thoughts that'll help you open up your heart so that you can no longer see things the way they are. And if you can find it, again, everyone's situation is different, but if you can release it and let it go and welcome in a different perspective, then I encourage that because that's what I did. And after so long of holding these resentments towards my father, once I let it go, once I saw him in a different light, I was able just to forgive him and say, oh, that's okay. I was putting too much on the old man. Again, I don't forget because how can I? That's my life and it's my childhood, but I don't have space for that anymore because he taught me things. It's another thing you can say too. In understanding that maybe they weren't there for you, they weren't as loving as you would have hoped, possibly they showed you that you had this need for love, and then maybe you're able to find it later on in your life with friends and other loved ones. So with them not showing you love, maybe you realize that it's something that you wanted and craved in your life, and therefore it turned you into a person that was looking for it, and maybe you were loving and outwardly expressing it towards other individuals, and then therefore you received it later on in your life. So just a final thought on resentment. Again, it's a basic human emotion. It's not a bad thing, right? It's not a bad thing. It's there to protect us. So don't feel bad about it. That's just something your mind is saying, hey, detect danger, danger. So what can we do? And there comes resentment. But then how you use it is up to you. Find the power within you to let go of these things that don't serve you. Find the power within you to let go of the things that hold you down and keep you emotionally stuck in places. Again, whether it's a few hours of your day or longer than that, you have the power, you have the choice at any time to break free from that. And it's really just shifting your mind, reframing things, understanding that there is a different way on how to go about things, that there's a different way, and that's the power of letting go of things and forgiveness. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much. Much love to you. Have a good day.